Hello again. It's Nick Flurry here. This week at the Punch Button, based on a true story, I decided to discuss Black Mass. It stars Johnny Depp, Joel Edgerton, Benedict Cumberbatch, Kevin Bacon, and a few other people. But those are like the main ones. It is the true story of Whitey Bulger and his unholy alliance with the FBI. And for the most part, it's very factual. The movie hits on major events in Whitey's life, and it capitalizes on them as a movie of this standard, this genre is supposed to do, and it does it quite well. And in some instances, it does it well, and in other instances, it completely looks over certain events in his life, like glosses over them, like they weren't as important as they should have been in the film because. There are two events in Whitey Bulger's life that I will get to that took place in the film, and they weren't talked about as greatly as they should have been. They weren't major plot points. They just happened and they passed by. But in real life, these two events were like the major groundbreaking events in Whitey Bulger's life. And I felt that the movie should have capitalized on them, but they didn't. And that's like one of my major problems in it. But I think my gripe that I always have with movies based on a true story genre is always the same thing: either over dramatization, because dramatization, it has to be there. It's something that this genre has to do. Has to take something true and add a cinematic touch to it to make it feel bigger than life. But when it's over dramatized, it makes it seem like it's more fiction than reality, which is a problem for me. And also when a film invents characters, people that didn't exist in real life, like Kevin Bacon's character, for instance. Now, there were people like him in the FBI, people who didn't support Joel Edgerton's character's exploits with Whitey Bulger, but there was no like one specific guy that the guy Kevin Bacon's playing. His character does not exist, and that was always a problem for me. I saw the movie, like, who is Kevin Bacon playing? Because I before I saw the movie, I did my research, I read the book, and I wanted to know more about Whitey Bulger before I went into the movie, because to me, the guy's very interesting, and I didn't see Kevin Bacon's characters listed. This name never came up, and I realized he was only there as an antagonist to Joel Edgerton's character, rather than just making, the FBI as a unit against him. He needed someone to argue with, like he had to argue with one person. And I understand that that's something the movie had to do, but and Kevin Bacon is great in the movie. He's great in everything he's in, but I could have dealt without the character. The movie would have been good without it, and he didn't add anything, or that he didn't take anything away from the movie. So why put him there? But that's beside the point. Johnny Depp, who plays Whitey Bulger, was actually really great in the movie. It's just, I wouldn't say it's his comeback, but it's, as far as his other films in the past few years go, they haven't been up to par with his earlier works. Movies like Transcendence and his most recent movie before Black Mass. Can't even think of the name of it, but I've only heard bad things about it. And this is the one movie in a while that came out for Johnny Depp that he actually has to act, for lack of a better word. He has to put effort in. It's very demanding. It physically, I'm sure, of course, mentally, and God, I didn't even recognize Johnny Depp. Didn't hear his voice. Didn't see him. He's covered in makeup, prosthetics. He has like a wig, and he's like his hairline's receding, and he's made to look older than what he actually is, which is funny because at the beginning of the movie, Whitey Bulger is in his 50s. And Johnny Depp, as you know, is also in his 50s, but he had to make him look older. I thought it was interesting. But to me, one performance in a movie can, one great performance in a movie can overpower whatever the rest of the film lacks as far as story-wise, or what it may cover up its errors, because you're so attentive with this one character that you don't really focus on everything else, and it blinds you. But I'm also a victim to this, but with Black Mass, I saw the errors and they were there. And as I said earlier, the two major events I wanted to be movie to focus on, it didn't. It just passed them over. The first one was the World Giant Lie scandal, and it's a scandal that was in real life. It's mentioned in the book. It covers like a few chapters. It's really a big part of his life. World Giant Lie is a sport. It's a foreign sport that was brought to America, and it was a sport that you could legally gamble on. And whoever owned the business or whoever ran the business could control the gambling, control the money, could launder the money through the business, and the man running it wasn't as honest as the people at the business wanted him to be. He wasn't the ideal businessman. He was in cahoots with Whitey Bulger and the Walter Hill gang. He knew gang members, so they had to let him go. They fired him. But while he was there, he was cooking the books. He was laundering his money and stealing from the company. He hired low guys, hired gangsters, hired thugs, and they knew about it. We're one of the reasons why they fired him. So during all of this, the new guy, the guy who replaces the former businessman, the former owner of the World Giant Lie Company, is also a numbers man. He has a son in the industry who can run the numbers, make sure everything is right. So what the former businessman does, he says this shouldn't happen. This isn't something that we need in our lives. If they find out that we've been cooking numbers, we're all going to jail. We're all going to prison for a really, really long time. And Whitey knew this, and they got together with a few other members of the Walter Hill gang, and they said, well, we got to get rid of this guy. We got to kill him. We got to make sure this doesn't happen. And it's a very strategic plan they had, a very plan that took a lot of thought into it. Whitey Bulger ran the entire thing. They flew to another state to find a businessman. They killed him in broad daylight, and just left his body there. Whitey Bulger was very, very hesitant because the deal that he had with the FBI was no killing. That if we were going to work together, you can't kill. And he knew that if he was involved, if his involvement got out, then he would lose whatever he had with the FBI. But so he took the risk anyway. He killed the guy, but he thought about it over a course of days. It taunted him internally. But the film doesn't really talk about this. Of course, it's a movie; it can't hit every minor detail. But in the film, Whitey Bulger's completely fine with this. Yeah, let's get rid of the guy. We got to get rid of it. In fact, at the meeting they're having in the film, Whitey Bulger was the first person to say, "Let's kill the guy. We got to get rid of him." Which was a problem for me because I knew the story, as I said before, and that's not what Whitey Bulger did. Whitey was very, very cautious about his deal with the FBI. He wanted everything to be well thought of, and in the film, like I said, he just went with it. And had the guy killed. And also, if you're watching the movie, it's very complicated. This whole scandal, but the movie only spends maybe 10 minutes on it, covering everything. It wasn't nearly enough time to focus on that one scandal because a lot of hell broke loose after the fact. There was a particular fellow at the table when they were talking about killing this new businessman who was a drug dealer who was deemed irresponsible and crazy, who couldn't be contained. In the film, if you've seen it, Whitey Bulger also knew this was someone we had to get rid of. We got to get rid of this guy because he will talk to the feds. He will get captured and he will sing. And in the film, he's captured. He starts to talk about Whitey Bulger, but unfortunately for Whitey's handler, played by Joel Edgerton, was in a room with the guy, and he sent him back on the streets. He knew, as well as the FBI knew, that this man wasn't going to make it through the day, but they sent him out anyway. They're very suspicious of his actions, but of course it's going to happen. So like I said, they do kill the guy, but in broad daylight, he's driving with this guy in the movie. He has had like a really big beard, long mustache, and long hair. And he's in a car with this drug dealer, the one that Whitey Bulger wants to kill. And in broad daylight, Whitey Bulger, it's the scenes in the trailer. Whitey Bulger just walks up to him with a rifle, assault rifle, and just mercilessly kills both of them. Uh, it's very violent, very brutal. But what the movie doesn't point out is that the driver, the man that who the drug dealer is with, he's not a gangster. He's not a thug. He's not with Walter. He's not corrupt. He's a family man. He was gone for the day. He told his wife he'd be home in a couple of minutes, and he was innocent. He was just picking up his neighbor. He had no idea what he was getting into. But the movie doesn't touch on this. I felt like it really should have, but it made him out to be like he was just in the criminal underworld, and it upset me a little bit that the movie didn't focus on that. And that was the first major event. The second major event in Whitey Bulger's life that the movie only mildly touches on is the guns trading between himself and the IRA. This was another deal that Whitey had with the FBI. You can't, if I'm going to do this, you can't touch me. You can't touch the Walter Winter Hill gang, and you also can't touch the IRA. The IRA must be left alone because in Boston, most people in Boston were either Irish or of Irish descent, like Whitey Bulger himself. So in the movie, he meets this veteran IRA member who is talking to him about what's going on in Ireland right now. That we're being killed, we're being imprisoned. We don't have the materials we need. We're missing guns. And Whitey Bulger agrees to send off tons of ammunition, rifles, C4, dynamite, anything they need from Boston to Ireland. Now this took a week. In real life, it was like a week trip. There was a storm. There was talks of the boat was stopped by this Navy officer, and it was very thrilling. But again, this is one of those events that the movie doesn't touch on. There's a scene where the veteran IRA member walks into the bar, talks to Whitey, tells him very factual. That's how it happened. It happened in the bar, and they meet, and 5 seconds later, they're on a dock, and the boat's loaded up and is shipped off. Another minute later, you see Whitey Bulger standing in front of his TV set saying, "That was my boat," because in real life, the boat was captured before it even got to Ireland. The boat and all of the guns, the weapons, the bombs were all taken back. They were all taken away. Whitey was in the clear because his name wasn't on it, but it just glossed over it. And it was another thing that really got to me. Which were my only two gripes with the movie. I wish those two events were more major. Like anything else the movie touched on they could have glossed over anything else in the movie, the murders, the death, but those are the two events I really wanted the movie to focus on, and they didn't. Maybe I'm being biased, but that's just how I feel. But everything else I think was very, very factual to what happened. But there was a instance where he has to kill the shipmate of the boat, the guy who ran the whole operation, who was piloting the boats across Boston to Ireland. Whitey felt the need to kill the guy because he felt that if I didn't get rid of him, he's going to talk to the FBI, he's going to ruin everything, and we'll lose everything we've worked so hard to get. But the actual reason why he was killing him because he was a rat, which is ironic because Whitey himself was a rat. And this is just a little nitpicky thing that bothered me about the movie. It was a very gruesome death. The movie was very gruesome with the death. He beat the guy senseless, halfway to death in a kitchen. He was very unexpecting. I thought the man thought he was walking into Whitey's house, having a friendly visit, and all of a sudden Whitey just starts beating him, takes him down to the basement, and puts a rope around the man's neck and strangles him to death. That's what happened in real life, but in real life it was way more gruesome, way more violent, and I felt that in an R-rated movie you can get away with a lot of things, not everything, but most things, and it was, of course, it was violent, it was gruesome, but I just wanted more. That's the feeling I had when I left the movie. I wanted more. I wanted a longer length, and I wanted more focus on important things in Whitey's life. Not saying the movie's not good. It's a good movie. I do recommend it to see it. But as far as a movie that's based on a true story, it's very factual in certain sections. But in the two major parts where it should be like very, very, like they should hit these parts hard, it doesn't. It just glosses over them, and that was it. But my only two gripes in the movie, and of course Kevin Bacon's character. But that's my my overall feeling of the movie. I just wanted more, and it's not a bad feeling to have when you leave a theater or take a movie out of your DVD player, Blu-ray player, whatever. It's not a bad feeling to have. But overall, yeah, go see it, rent it, buy it, whatever. But I do recommend it. But as far as I'm concerned, it wasn't what I wanted. But I do like the movie, regardless of what I've said. This is Nick Flurry, and signing off.